We've just been driving down through the lovely Highlands of the state of Victoria, ending up at the Winton Racecourse to test Subaru's brand new WRX. It's a vehicle that has a great heritage, but it also has to meet modern times and expectations. This video is a bit longer than normal as we cover some of the details of both the sedan and wagon and get a few short comments from Subaru's general manager and senior managers from marketing and public relations to understand the life and times of the WRX over the 30 years of its journey. Then a technical expert to explain why the garnishes on the new car down the side actually have a lot to do with aerodynamics. And Molly Taylor, the rally expert, was there to show us the track potential of this vehicle. This is the 5th generation WRX, and like they did at one time in the past, they have produced two distinct models. The sedan is the hero car for the sporty image, and the wagon, which is really a carryover from their Levorg model, which they see selling a year or two ago. It was a good car. It had a WRX engine, but they did not cash in on the WRX name, and they crashed out on the Levorg name, which it was pointed out that when you spelt it backwards, it gives you grovel. Not appropriate, but at least witty. Not using the WRX badge was, perhaps, an attempt to distance it from the Yahoo image that some associated with some of the antics and actions of young owners, including having to listen to their doof-doof music. Some have spoken of an immature image that became associated with the nameplate. With the new model, both the sedan and wagon have 3 specification levels, and there are some bling options on the exterior for the sedan that pay homage to the STI. There's a very moderate increase in power, no hot STI version, but a strong focus on improved handling. The exterior looks had the biggest upgrade when they launched the 4th generation model, with an angular style rather than the more rounded bubble appearance of generations 1 to 3. This 5th generation takes the sharper, aggressive approach a little further, with a bigger grille, slightly less prominent air scoop, but sharper lines around the squinty headlights and front pods. The tail also sharpens the edges, especially around the taillights that look like squashed square parentheses. The wagon is a little more conservative. This generation is a bit bigger, with the sedan's overall length up 75mm and width by 30mm. They only have 18-inch rims. They would like to have 19s for the hotter-looking sedans. That's on their desired list. Down the side of the vehicle, particularly the sedan, there are some subtle features to aid aerodynamics. It uses technology we associate with golf balls. We'll talk about that a bit more later. Ironically, the less aggressive-looking earlier models coincided with their greatest World Rally Championship success. WRX stood for World Rally Experimental, and Generation 1 won the championship in 1995 with Colin McRae, while Generation 2 won in 2001 with Richard Burns and 2003 with Petter Solberg. Later models were still part of a factory rally team in Australia and New Zealand, with Possum Bourne and others, then finally Molly Taylor. When we spoke to Subaru's general manager, Blair Reid, who still dabbles in rallying in historic rally cars, you could hear the passion in his voice about the vehicle's heritage. The word was mentioned in your presentations of a certain rawness to the earlier ones, and I hopped into the previous model and it immediately reminded me of a Datsun 1600. I mean, in a positive, in a positive way. You of course rally older cars, rally cars too. Do you get that feeling still with the new one?
I think you still get that feeling, and for me, even the look of the car with the external appearance of the sedan now, and the arch flares on the car and the muscular guards, to me it looks how a WRX should look. It's got big pump wide guards. I mean, if you put a couple of numbers on the side of the car, and we'd be we'd look at home, wouldn't we? So I think the car still has that that aura about it that you still feel like you've got that that rally pedigree, which is that's what WRX stands for.
Bulge in the bonnet.
And that hood scoop, that signature WRX, and when you look out the front of the car and you see that, or you see a lineup like we did this morning of them in the car park with those bonnet scoops, you instantly know what that car is.
That's important. But you use the word that it's maturing. Is that a reflection of the market as well?
I think it's also a reflection of technology that's available. If you go back to 1992 and those first cars, the technology systems that were available in cars, the type of technology, window winders in those days, and CD players and tape decks, the evolution of technology and the engineering that's changed in that period means that I think we've all become accustomed to a few more creature comforts. Safety's come a long way in that time. Cars have got slightly bigger, and the design of them has really evolved in terms of safety standards. So I think you touched on it before, you still get that feeling, but you've got such a package around you that offers you greater safety, greater drive quality, a bit quieter in the cabin, a bit more enjoyable, a great ride, that it's the evolution of technology over that time that's matured the car.
The interior is a significant move away from the rawness of previous models, with the adaptation of their latest 11.6-inch infotainment screen and system as used in their Outback model. It is clear in its presentation and comprehensive in its coverage, but like all new cars, you need to spend time to get to know it. We will do a separate video as part of our project on human-machine interface, with participation from experts such as Professor Mike Regan, that aims to help users navigate through the proliferation of graphic presentations and promote good practice in future designs. In this vehicle, there's a 4.2-inch multi-information display located in front of the driver with two main dials. Most of what is shown is fixed in what it presents, but a small section at the top of the 4.2-inch screen can be scrolled through with a variety of information, including navigation instructions for vehicles that have that system. All three model grades come with standard equipment that includes the central information display, 8 airbags, Subaru Vision Assist with blind spot monitor, lane change assist, rear cross traffic alert, dual zone climate controlled air conditioning, self-leveling LED headlights, steering responsive headlights, and LED front fog lights. The engine is bigger, 2.4 litres, and of course turbocharged, with a little bit more power, 202 kilowatts, that's up only 5 kilowatts, but no more torque, 350 newton metres. The power out torque has not kept ahead of the competition as it did in the past, especially without an STI. There are two transmissions. There's the 6-speed manual, only available in the sedan, carried over with a few improved touches. It is slightly quieter and a little crisper in making changes. The alternative is a continually variable transmission, CVT. Not my favourite gearbox in this or any other car. I recently drove a Subaru Outback, which I really liked overall, but the CVT, even when using the paddles, if you wanted predetermined set ratio to feel like a normal gearbox, reminded me of the time automatics were uncharitably called slush boxes. That's a bit extreme in this case. It wasn't that bad, but still a relatively good family car, sure, for everyday driving, with the assurance of all-wheel drive, etc., but not a car for a spirited drive on a challenging road. Horses for courses, they are, of course, more efficient. The new CVD, which is currently only in the WRX, is seen as one for their performance cars. And it is an improvement. They say it has a 20% increase in the speed of upshift and 50% improvement for downshifts.
CVTs, which always felt like a slipping clutch to me, having grown up on older cars, it's sharper. Is that important?
Yeah, you just mentioned it there in the question there that, CVT, when you mention that word, immediately conjures up some connotations for some people. And, I challenge anybody to drive the new car with the Subaru Performance transmission, which, is a linear-tronic CVT at its base, but the way the engineering has developed in that, it's not what people think a CVT is. It's a really engaging drive. It sets a whole new standard for that type of transmission. And we're on a march to really change that connotation that people have and help people understand the engineering work that's gone into it that makes it such a good drive. And, I only say that after driving the car, and I know, speaking with a number of you, you've noticed that difference as well, which is great, really positive.
It is more noticeable by the enthusiast, but then again, that's part of your heritage and your market.
Yeah, correct. And you're talking a range in customers, people who may have driven, may not have driven, have got previous connotations on that. And if an enthusiast notice and someone who's really into cars notice, then the broad range, every customer's going to notice that difference, which we think is all about giving the right driving experience and driving feel to a customer.
The first 3 variants I drove through the Highlands of Victoria had a CVT, and it was not till the Winton race circuit that I drove the manual. Up till then, the new WRXs certainly felt smooth and efficient and great handling. But the sharpness of the manual, as soon as I got in, immediately took me back to my memories of Rexys of yore. And the handling was good. The new one features full inner frame construction for high body and chassis rigidity, and gives some 14% more front lateral flexing rigidity and 28% more torsional stiffness than its predecessor. Now, Molly Taylor has a great rally pedigree, including being a past Australian rally champion and recently competing in the Dakar Rally. We interviewed her on that experience and produced a video with some of her great photos. But she is in her early 30s and so has a varied life that, at times, needs a practical form of transport that the wagon could offer. Apart from having a drive myself, I took the opportunity to sit in the passenger seat at the Winton Raceway in a manual sedan with Molly driving and raise the question of her preferences.
Yeah, coming into this week, I thought the sports wagon was going to be my pick, and I absolutely love it. But then when I hopped in the sedan and drove the manual gearbox, it's just such a good gearbox that I think I've changed my mind. I think this is the one for me now.
Chloe Fraser, the National Corporate Affairs and Public Relations Manager for Inchcape, who distributes Subaru in Australia, also reflected on the contrast in the model choice.
Chloe, which model appeals to you the most? Is being more of a younger generation, nothing personal, Blair?
None taken.
Look, I'm certainly very torn. I do love the traditional appeal of the sedan and the bold heritage that does come with it. But I think what I like most about this new generation is the fact that we're providing so much more choice to our customers. They now have the opportunity to choose whether it's a WRX sedan that suits them best, or if they'd like to see that WRX history in a sports wagon. And for me, it is the sports wagon that would appeal most to me, and I'm one of those customer bases that now has the opportunity to access that in this new generation.
Without pushing the power options, Subaru has put a lot of emphasis on their improved handling. To my mind, it has achieved a good improvement on top of an already solid platform, adding to the secure feel to the vehicle. I drove the previous model, including the STI version, around Wakefield Park Raceway when it was launched, and while it was great and highly enjoyable, I was a little conscious of its tendency to understeer if you turned hard into a corner. The new model was more sure-footed at the front end and compliant, so you could concentrate on your line in a corner. While the power is about the same as the old WRX, the maximum torque came in at lower revs, so for the limited time we had on the racetrack, I pretty well left it in third gear most of the way. They did put in a few chicanes, so there were no long straights. Molly was not so conservative.
I've been doing all these laps with all the traction on.
With the traction on?
With it on, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't...
Doesn't interfere?
No. You can push it, right to the edge, and it... you can feel it there a little bit, wants to cut in on that really tight corner, but apart from that, that's really the only place. Yeah, which I wanted to leave it on to see what it would let me do, and it's yeah.
The attention to detail that goes into the design of a modern car can't be underestimated. And talking about performance, let's go back and talk about the design and features on the side of the car with Brad Hicken, their technical product engineer.
Tell me about the side here, because you called it Garnishes, yet it has a technical significance, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll actually start at the front because it's sort of an all-encompassing. The side is part of the front.
Sorry, I just point out this is the STI option, isn't it? The colour?
The pink bits that you see here are STI accessories.
Accessories, I shouldn't say, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So the standard vehicle straight out of the factory floor won't have the pink bits there. These are optional accessories that do come in black as well.
But so the Garnishes.
Yeah, these garnishes here, this bit here, as I say, extending from the front bumper here all the way down the side skirt and actually wrapping around the rear bumper. That's all part of a aerodynamic garnish or textured pack designed specifically for aerodynamic performance. I'm not sure if it'll be hard to see on the camera, but they do actually have this sort of hexagonal type texture to it.
Even that's part and parcel of it. It makes us a perceivable difference.
Absolutely right. So it's a really, really poor analogy, but I guess the only way I can sort of explain it to you is similar to how a golf ball flies through the air. So if you had a perfectly round golf ball, it would not fly as well as what a dimpled golf ball does, which is why they have dimples. As I say, poor analogy, but it's sort of the easiest way to explain why the texture is there.
The way I play golf, maybe that's the way I drive too, but that's another question.
Yeah, so some of obviously I don't have the results, but the factory did do specific testing with all this exact garnishing as you see it, but with a smooth texture, and they rerun those wind tunnel tests with the texture, and they basically were able to clearly identify a benefit provided by that texture.
Lovely. So is the bottom sill, is that more looks, or is it, well, there's a bit of dimpling
exactly
on that
right,
too? Exactly
right. So the whole purpose is to basically direct the airflow from front to back and to be able to control it throughout its entire passage via through the vehicle. So in the front bumper there are air inlets that allows air into the front bumper and into the front wheel arches. Obviously, as your suspension moves, that air is going to compress and needs to go somewhere. So that's why they've got these functional vents on the side here to allow that air to escape. The design of the side of the car, especially the side skirts, channels that air down the side, same garnishing on the rear quarter panels here, and then basically allows it to flow around the back of the vehicle with this texture continuing all the way through the center section here of the rear bumper. And of course, again, this is a STI accessory option there.
Is that significant in having that there, or is that mainly looks?
It is primarily for styling. Now, whether there's a performance gain on that, I'm not too sure. I'd have to speak to our accessories team on that one.
That's a different lip too, is it?
This particular spoiler here is a different one. The standard one is a little bit shorter and a little bit sleeker. So again, this is one of the optional genuine accessories that we have on offer.
It's a little bit of being seen to be different.
Exactly right. Just gives a little bit of personalization. So everybody wants to be able to customize their car to suit their own personal taste, and that just gives them a lot of this isn't a kit. You don't have to buy it all in one. If you just like the wing, you can get just the wing, that sort of thing. So it allows you to customize it to your perfect styling.
In the earlier model, I remember parking an STI in the street. A guy looked at the front and went, wow, but rushed to the back to see if it had a big wing on it.
Yes, and obviously with the older model, they had the option to not get the wing as well. So if you wanted to fly under the radar a little bit more.
That's the purest, is it?
Exactly right. I mean, you got to save a little bit of weight, don't you? That wing's got to be at least a kilo or two.
And you even have the dimpling effect all over this.
Exactly right. So the intention is to try wherever possible to create a seamless flow from front to back without having any sort of just big panel gaps. So you'll notice even on the rear bumper, where the rear bumper joins the body, the garnishing goes over that joint. So you're not getting this big cut in the line there where the air is flowing.
So that's an aerodynamic issue.
Yep, so if you'd ever wanted to remove the bumper for whatever reason, you'd remove the garnish first and then you'd be able to remove the bumper. So it smooths out that joint.
So with things like more comfort, more information technology and a wagon, Is the WRX aiming at an evolving market? Amanda Leaney is their General Manager of Marketing.
In the presentations we received, there was mention of the station wagon and the possibility of putting other wheels in the back. I presume that's not mag wheels that we're talking about.
Prams?
Okay. Is there another mobility option there as well, like a scooter and things?
It's for skateboards, scooters, bikes. Absolutely.
You talked about the average age of cars in Australia generally is getting a bit higher. Older people are buying them. Why do you think that is?
I mean, when we look at our research, there's still a huge range of people who are buying cars, all ages, but it is aging around about each year. The age increases by about 9 months. So I think it was the last, off the top of my head, it was 49.7 years is the average age, where the prior period was just over 48. And when we look at your research, even when you go more broadly outside of car ownership, we do have a younger demographic who aren't as eager to get their driver's license as we once were. Like, I couldn't wait to go for my L's and then get my P's, where it's a different world today. There is more options. It's much easier for people to commute. And there's more ways of owning a car than just actually purchasing one too. And the younger generation is more attuned to that type of spectrum in mobility than what the older generation is. So I think it's more reflective of the changing times and the choice that people have in how they choose to scoot around.
Does that leave any company having to look at mobility a bit more broadly than
Absolutely.
It has in the past?
I think we need to start considering people still need transportation, and people still look for brands that meet their needs. So it's not about changing whether there will be cars. It's about how do we create cars and provide cars in a way that's more in tune with the changing environment. So we have to think about, whilst purchase and ownership is still the lion's share, we need to think about things like leasing and subscription and renting and share, because that's how people are living their life. You know, your technology and the way people consume other products in the market is something we need to learn from and need to provide those same sort of options, because consumers want choice.
While talking to their marketing general manager, I could not go past asking about electric vehicles, which was appropriate, as Subaru also gave us a look at things to come. Amanda picks up the story.
Electrification was perhaps initially perceived as a huge change. It's perhaps not as big, given a lot of cars don't do a lot of kilometres each week. Do you think there's a market, a maturing of the market, understanding of where an electrified vehicle could fit in?
I think so. I think similar with any technology, there's the adoption curve. And the more that the technology becomes understood and we educate ourselves on that and the accessibility of it improves, the adoption rate will improve. And I think a lot of consumers are interested in electrification, but their nervousness is around, I've got some range anxiety. Am I going to be able to get to where I need to be? Or what's the capability of the car? And the more we can make that feel normal and be able to provide it in their everyday environment, the adoption will come. But the technology and that adoption rate needs to pair much closer to get a faster adoption. And there's the big discussions around infrastructure and how do we support the infrastructure and that change. So once that infrastructure is made, again, you'll see another great kick to the adoption curve.
Part of the understanding is perhaps not the first question is range, but how am I going to use it?
Yeah.
You know, the vision that I might drive to Melbourne is
right. It's
not really a reality, is it?
But people buy for aspiration. Consumers buy for what you like. Even me as a consumer, we're all consumers. You buy for what you dream to be doing, things that you aspire to do, and as long as it can meet your everyday, then it's spot on. So you never want to be held back. And that's the beauty of Australian culture, is the living in possibility. So you want to know that I may not have to right now, but I want to know that I can. And if we can answer that, that will create the adoption.
Now, we're sitting in a quite different car. It's
Yes.
left-hand drive, which
Yes.
is merely for demonstration purposes, certainly not on the market at the moment. What is it?
It's the Subaru Solterra, our first EV, our EV SUV, fully filled with all the things that make Subaru wonderful, just with a new powertrain.
You will be promoting it as an extension of Subaru's DNA, won't
Absolutely.
you?
It's all-wheel drive, X mode. It'll have the same capability as XV, Forester and Outback, all just with an electrified powertrain.
The all-new Subaru WRX pricing starts at $45,000 for the manual sedan and $50,000 for the sports wagon. The big step is because the CVT gearbox is standard in the wagon, and the top-of-the-line models for the sedan are $57,000 and $58,000 for the wagon. And of course, to all these prices, you have to add on-road costs. Overdrive is a radio and podcast program featuring road tests, interviews and features on motoring and transport. More information is available at drivenmedia.com.au and podcasts on Spotify or iTunes.